All right, family. The long-awaited false teachings of the metal netter. Has the metal netter been deciphered? Me and Pharaoh standing on the side that no white man, no Oriental, no man on the planet, not even all African people, can decipher the metal netter. Why? I'm going to show y'all something. Hold up. I want to go straight to the stolen legacy. I'm going to go straight to the stolen legacy. We got to do that. Here we go. Let me go to it. All right. Now, this coming from George M. James, who was Dr. Ben's teacher. I studied this book over 25 years ago. And this had me wondering, even then, how people could be reading the metal netter. Because Dr. Ben always came from the perspective that in order to understand the mystery system, you had to be initiated. This is what Dr. Ben taught us, that it wasn't about a phonetical language, it was a secret language. And unless you was initiated into the craft and went through the degrees, you would never know that, okay? It took a priest 40 years to obtain an initiate, 40 years to obtain his priesthood. But today, you have people who have bypassed all of the ancient teachings, superseding the priesthood. I even asked these niggas, and, I've been to Egypt, and I asked them, I say, do you believe you can teach the metal netter better than the brothers and sisters that's in the Nile? And they say yes. They say yes, that they can teach it better than the brothers and sisters in the Nile. I say, I cannot believe this. Could Dr. Ben be lying? So I'm going to read something. It says, it would appear that there were two forms of writing in use among the Egyptians. The Demotic, believed to have been introduced by Pharaoh Psammetichus and for trade and commercial purposes. That's you must hold on to that. Demotic, right there. Because they say that's the second language on the Rosetta Stone. And y'all must understand that through the Rosetta Stone is where they supposedly made this decipherment. Now you're gonna have niggas try to go to an Arab who supposedly was a black man, who they don't know who he was. We know he wrote it in Arabic. Okay. Now we don't know if I didn't see an original book, so we don't know if that's a pseudo book or not. Okay. But unless he went through the craft, we are to assume that it's just one of those books, like they got the Book of Thoth, they got all these little magical books that they create, fraudulent in concept, okay, to steal our people's ancient teachings, okay, to steal the legacy of our people's teaching. So when you're looking at the Rosetta Stone, which I'm going to bring you to, you got the top, which is the glyphs, which is the primary scene. Then the second one, you got Demotic. And right here, reading from the Stolen Legacy, you see that it was for trade and commercial purposes. Now, you cannot use Demotic to translate the glyphs at the top, because the glyphs at the top were only taught to the priests. So you can't use a language for trade and commercial purposes to interpret the language of the priests, okay? Now, the hieroglyphs, of which there were two forms, the hieroglyphs proper and the hieratic alinear form, both which were used only by the priests, okay, in order to conceal the secret and mystical meanings of their doctrines. This coming straight from the Stolen Legacy, okay? Now, right here at the bottom, we are also informed that the mystery system of Egypt employed modes of spoken spoken language which could only be understood by the initiate. These consisted not only of myths and parables, but also of a secret language called Sinzar. Okay, and this is, I got to get the page. The education of the Egyptian priests consisted also in the specialization in secret systems of language and mathematical symbolism. Right there, I got it at the top. The hieroglyphics proper and the hieratic alinear form, both which was used only by the priests in order to conceal the secret and mystical meaning of their doctrines. So you got to understand that the two languages at the bottom of the Rosetta Stone, Demotic and Greek, which are two common languages for commoners, okay? You cannot take the language of the commoners to interpret the language of the priests, okay? So that's fraudulent in concept. And I'm going to show you that the Rosetta Stone itself is a fraud, okay? Because the top piece, which is the primary piece, is missing, okay? And that's just like somebody handing their homework, okay? And, you know, or if somebody lose their homework and another person tear the top of it off where their name is and sign their shit on the bottom and hand it in. You're missing the primary piece at the top. And without that primary piece, you don't know what the stone is saying. And so you can't make the decision based on the bottom of the stone, which is supposedly written in Greek. You don't know if that stone was tampered with. You don't know if the stone is fraudulent. But what we do know is that our people never spoke Greek. That we do know. So let me go back. Matter of fact, I could go right here. See, we're looking at the Rosetta Stone. See, the top part, where's the other piece? See, this is what they say could possibly be missing. This stone weighed 1,600 pounds at the bottom, okay? Where's the top piece? Where's the top of it at? Where the principal and primary scenes would have been located. See, this is supposedly Greek at the bottom. This is Demotic, which Stolen Languages, he just told us, was a trade language. This language at the top could only be spoken by the priests. Okay, now, when you go to the bottom of this stone, it supposedly said that all three scripts said the same thing. But what we do know that the Greeks could not speak ancient Egyptian. So if it said the same thing, how the fuck could they prove it when they couldn't speak ancient Egyptian? They couldn't prove it, okay? And since our ancestors knew the Greeks couldn't speak the ancient language, they had no reason to disclose any mysteries in the stone to anybody, because nobody could prove what it said in the first place. One thing that should be said up front is that Champollion, the Frenchman or faggot, was a Freemason. He never went to Egypt before he created the alphabet. Never went to Egypt. He created the alphabet in his attic, okay, without ever talking to an African. He was an Orientalist. He was a Freemason. You can see him right there with his hand in his coat. So we looking at all the prejudices, all the biases that these crackers had on our people. And at that time, before he became an Egyptologist, he was an Orientalist. What is an Orientalist? Those who study from the biblical aspect that all of humanity, civilization came out of Asia. And that's why when you go and listen to me, you go into all these books on own history dealing with Egypt, they always try to synchronize Egypt with the founding of Mesopotamia and say that the Mesopotamians started ancient Egypt. First and foremost, that's biblical. That's biblical. They cut the history of Egypt damn near by 9/10 of what it really is, okay, to synchronize it with the Bible. And that's one of the primary reasons why they created the Medunet. You got some shit talking about the Israelite stone. You got those so-called Hyksos who supposedly conquered Egypt. They call them by Semitic names, Yakuberd, and all of this. See, they synchronizing, trying to give some credibility to the Bible. Why is that? Because these are Orientalists. They are Christians, they are Jews. Every one of these so-called founding Egyptologists are either Jewish, they're Freemasons. Those are prejudices that these niggas speaking the metal netter is not telling you. And those prejudices and those biases play a large part in the way they try to synchronize Egypt with the Bible and with Sumeria. So you see, and so when you talk about Freemasonry, you got to understand that the foundation of Freemasonry is Kabbalah. That's Jewish. Okay? Why they not telling y'all that? So when you go look up the ancient Egyptian language, you can go look it up right now. They say Afro-Asiatic. Afro-Asiatic language. Because what they call in Coptic is nothing but a break off from Greek, Arabic. That shit ain't got nothing to do with Africa. That's shameful that most of these so-called Egyptologists and these metal netter speakers are talking about Coptic is the last stage of the ancient Egyptian language, which is a goddamn lie. It came out of Lower Kemet, which had been compromised over 1,000 years, okay? It had been conquered by many Asian forces from the so-called Persians. The Persians was in there before the Coptics. The Greeks came and left before the Coptics. Coptic is only synonymous with Christian. Look at this. See, these are the Masons. Champollion Napoleon. Champollion is a Christ figure in Egyptology. Okay? The Freemasons lust to replace ancient Egypt as the most illustrious fraternal order in the world. Okay? Because they knew that the craft was the first fraternal order of Masons, real Masons, not speculative Masons, but the brothers that were truly cutting the stone, really laying the foundations of what a fraternal order is. And not only that, you see right there, the Rothschilds. The Rothschild. You see right there? You see Napoleon, and also a Mason? Also a Mason, and you see Rothschild, who is the head of, who helped found Israel, funded every fucking nation in Europe. This is who they owe their allegiance to. That's who owns the British Museum, who owns the Rosetta Stone, And we're talking about the British Museum is the largest repository of Egyptian artifacts on the planet, with damn near 14 million. Did you hear what I just said? 14 million artifacts from ancient Egypt, even larger than the Cairo Museum. That's a crime shame. That's a crime against all of humanity, African humanity on the planet, for another nation to have that many artifacts belonging to another nation. You see the shield of the Rothschilds. This is right here is in Israel. So while you see him in his Masonic pose, it's showing you who he owes his allegiance to. He owes his allegiance to that Ashkenazi Jew. And the Ashkenazi Jew is the owner of Egyptology. They own all of the Egyptology. The Egyptologists were just rock hunters. But when they went over there and retrieved the treasures, when they went over there and retrieved the artifacts, they had to bring it back home to the Rothschilds, who own the British Museum. There again, showing you the Freemasonry of who owns free. These are Rothschilds who believe in Kabbalism, which is the foundation of Freemasonry. Let me go in. Now I got to lay it for you. I got to lay it for you. I got to lay it for you. I want to talk about something. Okay? We're looking at a law, what we call the law of diametric opposites. And when you talk about diametric opposites, you're talking about the two opposing extremes, hot and cold, up and down, left and right. So you're talking about that the European, the Greek, who is a faggot, who's a homosexual, who's a pedophile. This is what y'all talking about. Y'all translated our African script into. This is the language that they say they use to translate our ancestors' sacred language. The language of the freaks. Did you hear what I just said? The Greeks were homosexuals, lesbians, and pedophiles. The Africans worshiped the family, the black family, and the black woman. Greek thought could not accept this, so they carved it off the walls. Okay, so that's showing you. How could they read the Meduna? How could they read our ancestors' script? They abhor, they disdain African thought. And they proved it because when they came in, because they homosexuals, if you go and watch the caveman, he's pulling his woman by the hair. This is something completely opposite to Greek thought. So how in the hell can you take Greek at the bottom of the Rosetta Stone? You can't, it's not even phonetical because we just read where it was a secret language. So you cannot just take a letter and put it on a symbol, which I will show you that. But I'm showing you that we're talking about the extreme opposites. Okay, the African and the Greek are extreme opposites. The African worship the sun. Look at this. How can the vampire interpret for the children of the sun? Extreme opposite, totally unalike. So you mean to tell me you believe the vampire can come in and interpret for the children of the sun? See, that's the law of diametric opposites. We have two opposing spirits. Okay? Two opposing spirits. And just like they cannot interpret for us, most African people cannot understand European culture, don't want to. When you see them touching on, as men, touching on the babies, that's something that African people are going to shun totally. So they cannot interpret for us, and neither can we interpret for them. Now look at this. This is a graphic to show you that it's true that we're diametric opposites. The question asks, should society accept homosexuality? Now look at this. You go into Europe, see, the yellow is no, the green is yes. Should society accept homosexuality? You go into Spain, see 88% yes. You go into Germany, 87% yes. You go Czech Republic, 80. France, 77. That's where your Champollion. That's where your Napoleon. Your fucking faggots that y'all calling the founding fathers of Egyptology. Okay, you go into Britain, 76% yes. Italy, 74. Greece, 53. Poland, 42. Russia, 16. Now you come to Africa where it says no, look. South Africa at 61, that's the lowest, and that's because they got some crackers there. But when you go into Kenya, 90% No. Uganda, 90%? No. Go to Ghana, 90%? No. Senegal, 90% no. Nigeria, 98% no. So you can see we're diametric opposites. Okay? So you think our people would agree with these faggot-ass Medunetta speakers taking Greek, a homosexual language? Our ancestors would turn over in their grave if they would believe we would be so, that's sacrilegious against our ancestors to use Greek, the freaks, and use their language as a means to translate the African language, which we call sacred. Now y'all listen to that. Y'all listen to that. Y'all use Greek, a faggot language, to translate the sacred language of our ancestors. There's something wrong with that. Let me go into this. The polluted Ptolemies. Okay? As we talk about the Ptolemies, this is who they use. The first word ever transliterated in the so-called fake Medunetta was Ptolemy, who was Alexander's lover, a homosexual. Okay, you're talking about a homosexual dynasty, the polluted Ptolemies. The savior of the Medunetta. This was the first, Thomas Young, who came before Champollion. The first word ever transliterated was Ptolemy, where they took this cracker's name and superimposed it on the glyphs of our ancestors and began to create the what they call the hieroglyphic language of today. Look at this cracker. So he is the savior. He is the savior. So I'm gonna show you some things. So who was Napoleon's his idol, his hero? Alexander. This is Napoleon. This is Alexander. This is the Greek freaks. If you ever seen the movie Alexander, Ptolemy was one of his lovers. So remember, when y'all say that the first word transliterated was Ptolemy, you got to understand that these are homosexuals. You see this shit that they partaking in? And then you're going to say you translated the language of our African ancestors from this language right here? You opening up the gate for them to enter. That's why they got all these homosexual interpretations in the goddamn Medunetta. Because when you open it up for the cracker, that's exactly what you're going to get. And these niggas are not protecting you. They're not telling you the truth about this. That Ptolemy, and this is the supposed Greek at the bottom of the stone. And they over here touching on boys, touching on men. Look at Napoleon and Champollion. Look at them. One of the most sissified cultures in all of Europe. Look at this. But y'all say y'all don't support LGBT. Y'all don't support homosexuality, but yet and still y'all allow the French faggot Napoleon, which is the John the Baptist of Egyptology, and Champollion, who is the Christ figure. Did you hear what Ankh said? He said if the white boy hadn't deciphered and I'm going to get into the transliteration, I'm going to get into the translation. They all are forms of raping the language. But they say if it wasn't for Champollion deciphering the so-called Medunetta, we wouldn't have no history of ancient Egypt. Ain't that the same shit they say about the Bible? Y'all got to understand that this is a religion. And that Champollion is not only your Christ figure, he's also your Moses. And the Rosetta Stone is your 10 Commandments. And if it was not for Champollion, what the niggas said, that we wouldn't have no history of ancient Egypt, which is a goddamn lie. He's forcing you, just like the preacher, man. This is what the Medunetta niggas is doing. They forcing our people to bow down to this peckerwood. The whole of the African world is at his mercy. Because if it be not for this one cracker Not one of us would know our ancient African history. That's a shame. This is a religion. This is a fucking religion. It's no different. And so we had to come out here today and put it on the table for the first time and pull it apart. Because you know what happened? Niggas went into that believing shit. Didn't nobody officially put this shit on the table and pull it apart and really dig down into it. Y'all niggas believed it. Y'all believed it without even doing research. Okay? And I don't care who it was. Dr. Ben, which we will prove, told these niggas that they couldn't speak that shit. He told them. See, Dr. Ben used it as a construct to teach through because they know he knew for over 200 years, that's all you knew. That's all the world knew. You can't teach. That's just like Africa. If you go to any map in the world, it's going to say Africa. Some niggas going to say, where's some older names? Well, that's not an international name. The international name for the continent is Africa. So if you want a mass understanding, if you want the masses to understand what you're talking about, when you call on the continent, you got to say Africa. You say anything else, nigga, and you're going to lose a mass amount of people. So you have to teach through some constructs at times to get a mass understanding. Look at this. Greek is the mother of the Meduna. You got to look at this. They're not telling y'all that. How is these wicked, hideous crackers, how is their language got any constructs that can explain what is going on in Africa? That's a hell of a concept. And y'all didn't pull it apart. I had to pull it apart today. You mean to tell me that this cracker know what it means when we talk about the black woman is God and this motherfucker is in here doing all this hideous, barbaric, backward ass practices? Let me keep it moving. So we're talking about the possibilities. See, when we went to the stolen legacy, we destroyed the myth that it could be a phonetical language, which means you can't put letters on symbols and render the meanings. That's impossible. You got to have a key. I'm going to show y'all that. You have to have a legend, okay? But in the scope of research, the Greeks are the first 48 hours, okay? In the scope of research, the Greeks are the first 48 hours. And if y'all watch 48 hours on TV, what does it say? If you don't get that, if you don't crack that goddamn case in the first 48 hours, what happens? Your chances of cracking the case is cut in half, okay? You're not allotted forever to do something. You're given an amount of time to do that, okay? So we're looking at the hourglass. This is the first 48 hours, okay? And while the Greeks were ruling Egypt from 332 BC, starting with Alexander, okay, to about 30 BC, this was the Greek rule of Egypt. They never produced an Egyptian dictionary. They never produced a bilingual Egyptian dictionary or any form of where you could prove that the Greeks could read Medunata. Okay? So the first 48 hours, which were the Greeks, it went by. And so this is your prime time right here, the Greeks. You know why? Because you are the ruler of Egypt. Okay? You can force the priest to do it. But it was never done because there's some things, what we just said, the diametric opposite. You cannot translate African into Greek. That's what they ain't telling y'all. It's totally impossible. And then you're going to take the sacred, and y'all talking about it's the sacred language. That's critical. How the hell you going to get something sacred from something vulgar? So what we're showing you, that the first 48 hours, which is from 332 BC to 30 BC, the Greek Ptolemaic rule, they never produced any Egyptian Greek dictionary. Okay? The last 48 hours is the Roman rule, because they took over from the Greeks. Okay? You got Egypt is still living, the language is still living, the priesthood is still functioning. You have access to primary sources. What are primary sources? Sources that you can ask that are going to give you the right information, because it comes from that time period. Once you leave that time period, you lose the opportunity to have access to prime resources. Okay, and we're going to talk about primary sources, and we're going to talk about secondary sources when you're doing research. So again, the Romans would have been the last 48 hours. So they ruled from about 30 BC to about 680 BC. So really, the Greek and Roman rule was almost 1,000 years, and they never produced an Egyptian Greek dictionary. So the question is, how the fuck is Champollion gonna come 2,000 years after the fact, after the language is dead? He don't have access to primary sources. Okay? You don't have opportunity for primary verification, because the priesthood is no longer functioning as it did in the ancient world in Egypt. Let me come in. The Romans are the last one. With the end of the Roman rule, over 1,000 years of pollution, okay, destruction, and negation left Egypt a virtual wasteland. Now, they might try to come out and say, well, it was a black man, and he wasn't no black man. They're just trying to say he was a black man who was in Iraq around the 10th century, supposedly deciphered some of the metadata. How did he do it? Was he initiated in the craft? We go back to the stolen legacy. Was he initiated in the craft? No, he was not. Because one of the rules of the craft, you were forbade to teach any of the information to somebody who was a non-initiate. You had to go through like every other priest. You had to do your 40 years like every other priest. Okay? So how the hell did he decipher any of it if he wasn't initiated? Okay, after that, your time is up. After the Roman rule, after the Greek rule, your time is up, and you have no more access to primary verification. Okay? And so you hear people out here talking. The mouthing of the so-called metadata is not proof that it's been deciphered. Because it can't be deciphered, because it's a secret language. It's not a phonetical language. Okay? You can't put a letter on symbols, because symbols have meanings that go beyond a letter, and just placing a letter on the symbol is not going to render you the meaning. Okay? Any methodology after the Greeks and Romans is complete speculation and fraudulent conjecture. Okay? Let me keep it moving. But the cracker still thinks he can manipulate time. Okay? You cannot go back in time and rewrite history. Okay? So for over 2,000 years, whether you go to the early Greek philosophers, whether it was Thales, whether it was Pythagoras, whether it was Socrates, whether it was Aristotle, okay, whether it was Solon, whether it was Herodotus, they all said what George M. James said, what Dr. Ben said, that it was a secret language. Only with Thomas Young, only with Champollion did they start to say that the language was not mysterious, that it was phonetical, and that it could be deciphered if you use the Champollion methodology. So over 1,500 years had passed, and Champollion kidnapped. This is something missing out here. So 1,500 years passed where all the great minds of the world taught that it was a secret language. So y'all the motherfuckers who teaching the metal netta are the ones that are rewriting history. Y'all gonna rewrite over 1,500 years of history taught by the greatest minds of Europe. How could that many men be wrong? And this motherfucker come 1,500 years after the fact, no primary verification, no access to the language, no access to the priest, and he's gonna rewrite 1,500 years of history where the white men, the great philosophers teach us that they went to Egypt. Some of them, they say, were initiated. That's another story. We don't believe that, but at least they're telling us the process of how you get the knowledge. Come on, let me keep it moving. Okay, we're going to go into the history of Herodotus. Why do we go to Herodotus? Herodotus is what they call the father of European history. Okay, he's the first European to write in the way that a historian writes today. And so he supposedly went into Egypt around 425 BC. That was at the time where the so-called Persians had conquered Egypt. What does Herodotus say? Listen to this. He said the Egyptians adhere to their own national customs and adopt no foreign usages. So this is a Greek giving it up. He's telling us that our ancestors adopt no foreign usages. So when you say that the Coptics, took African language and gave up their own alphabet to accept the Greek language, that's a goddamn lie. No indigenous African would have ever given up their ancestral tongue, their ancestral alphabet for no goddamn Greek. The Coptics were the bastard children of many European tribes, Greek and Roman, who had came and conquered much of Lower Egypt. Dr. Ben always taught that history starts at the beginning of the river, not at the end. So you talking about in Lower Kemet, which had been compromised many thousands of years by the time the Copts came along. The Greeks had came and left before the Copts even came on the scene. The Greeks had came and left. The Romans, the Western Roman Empire came and left. So you got many, when you talk about the Greeks, you're not just talking about one tribe. You're talking about many dialects when you talk about Greek. So when they conquered Egypt, they brought tribes from all over the wasteland of what today we call Europe. Even the Romans. That's just not one dialect. So when you talk about the Romans conquered Egypt, you're talking about possibly hundreds of dialects of Europeans coming into Egypt, spreading their language, spreading their culture. And so the Coptics is a mixture of all of that. It's not African. Let me read also from Herodotus. The Egyptians disliked adopting Greek customs. Okay then, you hear that? Let me back it up. He said the Egyptians disliked adopting Greek custom, or in a word, those of any other nation. This feeling is almost universal among them. Okay, so our ancestors right there, he's giving it up. He's telling you that we would never have taken the Rosetta Stone. Okay, that's a compromised area. That's Lower Kemet. It was compromised. You don't take nothing like that and use it as a standard. You go back up the river. You go up to Nubia. You go down into Punt. You go down into Uganda and start all over. You go to the mother tongue. You don't go down in Lower Kemet, which have been compromised so many times by foreign conquests. So Coptic is not African. I must say that. It's a tongue similar to Arabic. Greek, Aramaic is a foreign Asiatic language. Okay? Let me read it out. It says, the Egyptians dislike adopting Greek customs, or in a word, those of any other nation. This feeling is almost universal among them. That means all of our people. We don't accept no goddamn languages from no crackers and no Asians. We didn't do that, okay? And listen to what he said at the bottom. It says, thus far, I have spoken of Egypt from my own observation, relating what I myself saw, the ideas that I formed, and the results of my own research. What follows rests on the accounts given me by the Egyptians. Hold up. What follows rests on the accounts given me by the Egyptians, which I shall now repeat, adding thereto some particulars which fell under my own notice. So he asked our ancestors, and they told him. Champollion didn't do that. Richard Lipsis, Adolf Ehrman, all of these so-called linguists, they didn't have an opportunity to ask our ancestors anything. So they have no primary verification for anything that they created. They created it 2,000 years after the fact. It's conjecture, it's lies, okay? To seize our ancestors' tongues and to prop up the Bible. Look at what he said. So when you say, thus far I have spoken of the Egyptians from my own observation, you can see these are the priests that put it on the wall. Okay? These are the ones that can give you primary verification. If you don't get it from the priest who put it on the wall, how the hell do you know? You got to quit lying. You got to quit lying. Okay, let me step to this metal now. I'm just getting warm. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this. See, the Egyptians dislike adopting Greek customs. In a word, those of any other nation. The feelings is almost universal among them. And I see why they would not adopt Greek customs. Look at this shit. Look at Alexander and Ptolemy, which y'all use the Greek rulers. I'm going to show you that they use the names of the Greek rulers to make the hieroglyphic alphabet. And then you got Fudishi talking about the A come from the vulture when he say, "Oh, you silly man, you." "Oh, the A comes from Alexander's name, you lying ass nigga." I wish we could have had that, because I was gonna front on your ass right there in the front row, nigga. You would tell our babies a goddamn lie like that. Let me keep it moving. Wait a minute. And this is why the Greeks were banned from ancient Egypt until being conquered by the Persians and then finally by the Greeks in Rome. They kept them out. They were banned from Egypt for 5,000 years until conquered by the Persians. So Coptic is a bastard language with a mixture of Greek, Slavic, Persian, Latin, Byzantine, Turkish. This destroys the myth of Coptic being the last stage of the ancient Egyptian language. It ain't even Egyptian. It's Greek. These niggas, because look it up. When you look up the ancient Egyptian language, it's gonna say that it's Afro-Asiatic. And when you look at all the languages that's in the Afro-Asiatic language, you got Aramaic, you got Hebrew, you got Arabic. So a lot of them Egyptologists is not telling you that they use Hebrew, which is Yiddish, which is German, because that was another dead script. So y'all not looking at all these languages that were dead, that these crackers they didn't fix a modern language to give the illusion as if you speaking it. You're not speaking the ancient tongue. Hebrew today, it was no ancient Hebrew, because that script come from Demotic. That's where it come from. Mostly all what you call the Persian, what you call the so-called Canaanites, what you call the Greeks. All of them languages come from Demotic. They just switched the alphabet up a little bit, but that's the mother tongue, the mother alphabet of all them goddamn languages. Okay? Let me keep it moving. Okay, now we're going into the Rosetta Stone by Wallace A. Budge. I'm just getting warmed up, family. Look at this. This is an official document of the British Museum that owns the Rosetta Stone. So I don't want y'all to go get no fraudulent manuscripts. This is an official document from the British Museum. Now listen to this, y'all. I'm gonna fuck y'all up right quick. Let me get some more. Let me get some of that. I'm just getting started. Fucking them up. They got y'all reading faggot shit. They got y'all niggas out here translating the sacred language. How you gonna get something sacred from something vulgar? I'm gonna break it down to you. Look what he said. Strictly speaking, all the letters of the Egyptian alphabet are consonants, just as are the letters of the Hebrew, Syriac, and Arabic alphabet. In reading the text, the Egyptian reader himself supplied the vowels, and it is for this reason that we shall never know accurately how the Egyptians pronounce their words. That's very critical. I need that, brother. Thank you. That's very critical. I'm going to go over that again. Who is this from? Well, E.A. Wallace. That's a very powerful dagger right there. In reading the text, the Egyptian reader himself supplied the vowels. And it is for this reason that we shall never know accurately how the Egyptians pronounce their word. Now, sometimes you hear Nefer. Ain't no Nefer. All you got is the N, the F, and the R. There is no Nefer. Okay? So you, as a person that speaks English, you can add A, you can add the I, you can add the O, and you can add any vowels in English to your discretion, however you want to add them. It don't have to be Nefer. You can put N, you can put N-O-F-O-R. Nobody could tell you it's wrong, because it's all wrong. Because you should not be adding no fucking vowels to the medu letter. That right there collapse anything that you niggas is talking about, because it's not supposed to be spoken. Listen to this. In transliterating Egyptian words, I have often added an E as the Copts seem to have done. But otherwise, the words are unpronounceable. Now ask yourself this. If Copt is ancient Egyptian, and the ancient Egyptian don't use a vowel, and the Copt got vowels, how could this be the last day? How could this be ancient Egyptian? What happened? Where the damn languages don't fit. Okay, they got vowels in Coptic. There's no vowels in ancient Egyptian. Okay, listen again. In translating Egyptian words, I have often added an E, as the Copts seem to have done. For otherwise, the words are unpronounceable. Okay, so how can you define words you cannot pronounce? So if you hear anybody speaking the Medunata, that right there is fraudulent. That right there is fraud. You know what the niggas go, see right here where it say Patah Hotel? It's really just P-T-H-H-P-T-P. That's not pronounceable. You added the vowels to say Patah Hotel, but it ain't no Patah Hotel. Now, for instance, take almond. Wait a minute, let me see if I got, is that right there? Oh, I could put this one right here too. Now, see, this is the, it's Shunshat. Okay, there is no Shunshat. Okay, it's only S-S-N-Q. Now, in English, they added not only some vowels, they added some consonants too. They added the H, H-O-H-E, between the S-S and Q, right there. That's the transliteration. You cannot pronounce that, okay? So you got Shunshat in English. This is German. The German got their own vowels, got a different spelling. This is the French, got their own vowels and dialect. This is the Dutch, got their own vowels and dialect. So you can go, if you take 100 languages, you can have at minimum 100 different words for this one transliteration. But because you got 6 vowels in English, you got 17 in French, you got 8 in German, if you add up all of the combinations that you can have in all of them vowel sequences, you can have thousands of words for that one transliteration. You can have thousands of words for that one transliteration. Okay? So this, but it's only one truth. It ain't thousands of goddamn truths. It's only one truth. And you don't even hear it up here. It's our ancestors. Because this is Latin. That's Latin right there. Ain't even no Latin on the stone. So when they transliterated it, they quick to show you the Latin without showing you the Greek. Latin is not on the stone. It's only the glyphs, Demotic, and supposedly Greek. This is Latin. Okay? So they done transliterated it into a language that's not on the stone. Let me fuck you up. I'm not done. Not done. Let me go right here. Let me go right here. They took the names of homosexuals and faggots of the Greek dynasty to make the hieroglyphic alphabet. So you see right here where you got Ptolemy, they superimposed Ptolemy's name on the glyph of a cartouche, whom they assumed was his name. You got Cleopatra, and down here you got Alexander. You got Alexander. So the A didn't come from no you silly fool. It ain't even no A in ancient Egyptian. So y'all got to understand that the Egyptian language is silent. What y'all transliterated was the Greek, superimposed it onto the glyph. But you didn't have a full match for all of the glyphs. So that show you that Greek was deficient. So they use what? They either use Coptic to fill it in, they use Arabic, they use Hebrew as a filler language. So I'm showing you it's a hybrid language because you got 2 or 3 languages to make one fucking word. The Greek was deficient. So the A don't come from no it comes from the A in Alexander. You got Cleopatra, you got Ptolemy, you got Bernice, all of the names. You even got Caesar. Even Caesar, the Roman ruler, his name was superimposed. So when the Egyptian hieroglyphic alphabet was created by superimposing the initials of homosexual Greek ruler name on the sacred glyphs of our African ancestors. So if you're using this alphabet today, it came from the superimposing of these homosexual, lesbian, pedophile rulers, superimposing their initials onto those corresponding glyphs. Okay? Now, look at this. Look at that. Is that shocking? Ain't that a damn shame? Shocking how you get on this movie, y'all? Niggas starring in the false teachers of the metal now. Look at Shocking. Who that is, Shocking? Is that Sarnetta? Look at it. He got Sarnetta down there. Shocking Sarnetta. That's right. I'm gonna get you, fuck nigga. Y'all gonna go off on me. By accepting the Greek Europeans' false translation of our ancestors' language, black metal letter speakers have paved the way for homosexual ancient Egyptian to be taught to our people. And this is what they're doing now. They're making homosexuality acceptable in ancient Egypt. Now, ask this question. If in 1,000 years, the ancestors never produced a bilingual Egyptian Greek alphabet or dictionary, this is solid proof that they never wanted it to be so. I'm going to read it again. If in 1,000 years, that's Greek and Roman rule, the ancestors never produced a bilingual Greek alphabet, Egyptian or Greek alphabet or dictionary, this is solid proof that the ancestors never wanted it to be so. So the fact that you niggas come today and sacrilegiously take our ancestors' sacred glyphs and correspond it to homosexual faggots from Greece, you have betrayed our ancestors. You have betrayed the nation. You have committed treason on the ancestors. Now you look at this. Let me keep going. What do we talk about when we talk about primary? Earliest in time of order. Predominant, paramount, chief, key, prime, central, principal, foremost, first. So when you're talking about primary, the top of the Rosetta Stone is primary. The Demotic is secondary, okay? That wasn't before 600 BC. The Greek is fraudulent. It's not before 200 BC. You got to look at that dates, okay? So you don't have no Greek before 200 BC. You don't have no Demotic before 600 BC. The pyramids were built probably around 12,000 BC. The reason why they got it at 3100 BC today is to synchronize it with the Bible. You fools. Herodotus, I'm going to show you. Herodotus said that the priest told him that Egypt was 12,000 years old. Okay? And that seems more likely than 3100 BC, because no way you're going to go from the first king, Narmer, building a mastaba, and in 300 years, you building a megalithic pyramid that has shocked the minds of everybody on the planet. That was at least hundreds of thousands of years of information. And there's no way you can go from and achieve that amount of information in 300 years. Watch this. I'm not done. I'm just getting started. We're going to go into Walter Williams. We're going to go in. I'm gonna break something down to you. The historical origins of Christianity.
Hold on, pause. Let me check this focus.
Check the focus now.
Check the focus. Hold on, family.
Check the focus.
Let me see.
That might be dark.
Go back to your last slide. With the definition. Your last one. Last one with the definition.
That was way down.
All right, fuck it. Go for it. Go back one more. All right, let me. One more. Oh, to the yellow. All right, let me see. Might be good.
That's good.
That's good. Yeah. All right, hold on.
All right.
Let's see the remote.
Okay.
Hold the remote. Now, this ain't good, family. Y'all gonna have to hold that down.
What they say, sorry.
Yeah, it was just unfocused a little bit. All right, with that being said, family, that's good as it's gonna get. The smaller the words, let me tell y'all something. The smaller the words get, family, the harder it might be to see, depending upon what kind of computer or phone you watching on. So you gotta listen because he also reads it. But apparently you can see this shit right here. That's so right. You know, goddamn. Now with that being said, let's continue.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it out for y'all. And we're gonna use Walter Williams because a lot of my research I did before I even read the book, The Historical Origins of Christianity. And many of us, I'm gonna deal with them Egyptologists. I did the research before I got into the book. But I agree with a lot of what Walter Williams is saying. He can back it up. I heard what Ankh said, and he said that Walter Williams used Asa, okay, as a means to explain. Just because somebody used the language don't mean they verified the validity of it. They know, the brother know if he used the term Asa, that's what you understand Osiris to be. Just like we understand the continent of Africa to be African. I mean the continent, we understand it to be Africa. Okay? You can't use words that people don't understand and think you're gonna get to get the information across to them. You have to speak in the language that the people understand. So that just because somebody uses it does not mean they validating the shit. That's crazy, okay? But listen to what he said. While the metal letter hieroglyphics have never been deciphered, contrary to the teachings of Western institutions, the metal letter or hieroglyphs, which are the pictorial symbols of the ancient Egyptians, have never been deciphered. The following are the reasons. Number one, in order for the metal letter or hieroglyphs to have been deciphered, one would have to ask the ancient Egyptians who drew the symbols what he or she meant for them to be. And that's true. You must have primary, what I call primary verification. So unless you can get King Tut to rise up out the goddamn grave and come up on the stage and validate what the fuck you talking, you don't have primary verification. Okay? To illustrate my point, I would draw a symbol of my own creation. Okay, so he drew this symbol. Now I ask, what is the meaning of this symbol? Realistically, you cannot know until I provide you with the meaning. Okay? No one can put a phonetical alphabet value to symbol. For example, the symbol of the question mark. Can you assign a phonetical alphabetical value such as the letters T, M, P, K, R, etc. to the question mark? The answer is no, because the question mark is telling you something to do, to question, okay? If you drive a car, you were tested in 3 categories: eyesight, rules of the road, and symbols. When you were tested for symbols, you were asked what the symbols were telling you to do. In order to know what the symbols are telling one to do, one has to know the meaning of the symbol as standardized by the Division of Motor Vehicles. If you did not know the meaning of the symbols, you failed the test. Okay? Now check this out. Let me go so I can get with you right quick.
They said go to a little bit to the left. So after you're done talking so they can see the screen.
Oh, okay, I'm in the screen?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'm going to read this one too. Also, one cannot use any language, Coptic or otherwise, as a key to understanding the symbols of the hieroglyphs, i.e., you cannot apply a language or languages to symbols that one does not know the meaning of. Now watch me fuck you up. See these symbols right here? No, it's a little blurry, but that's all right. You see these symbols? What do these symbols mean? Without a legend or key, it is impossible to know. Okay, so I got these 2 symbols. Now what does this symbol mean? What does it mean? You don't know. What do these symbols mean? Look at this symbol here. Look at this symbol here. I'm going to give you the meaning in a minute. What do this symbol mean? You don't know, but I'm going to show you. See, now this is the legend. This is the legend that'll give you. So this, when we go back to the first one, okay, this is, wait a minute. This is phono pickups. This is I guess this is a needle, okay? Like you put on the record player. You got a crystal and you got a magnetic, okay? This right here is a plug or a socket. This is standardized wiring diagram symbols, okay? So if you don't have the legend, you will never know what the hell they mean. Wait a minute. So when you go back to these, see, these is antennas. You wouldn't know that if you didn't have the legend. This is an antenna. The first one is a general antenna. The second one, dipole. The third one, loop. The last one, ferrite type. Okay? Y'all just going to the wall looking at symbols. But you don't have this the legend that the priest who put it on the wall, you don't have that. So you guessing, nigga. When you come to a symbol where you ain't got the legend, you guessing. You don't know what the hell it means. So what do these symbols mean? We already did this one. I think I did. Okay, now, the only individual or individuals who created the symbols can give you the key or the legend. Now let's talk about it. In order to hit the jackpot, you must have the Powerball. What is the Powerball? The priest who put it on the wall. The Powerball is primary verification. That's the first goddamn ball you got to look for. If you get this one, the priest can tell you. If you got a couple right, if you got that one right, you might hit a couple. You might get a little something. But if you ain't got primary verification, if you ain't got the Powerball, if you ain't got the priest, and we know you can't get that because Egypt is no longer existing like it did in the ancient world, okay? So you cannot get primary verification, okay? that can only come from the priest that put it on the stone. The Powerball is the primary legend or key to unlock the symbols. And that's this. This is the Powerball. This is the legend. This is the teacher's manual that's giving you the meanings of the symbols. So when you go to the walls in ancient Egypt, you're just looking at symbols. You don't have the legend. You don't have the legend. Okay? So you guessing and making up shit as to what it means. The only person that can give you the legend is the people who created the symbols. Champollion didn't create the symbols. Richard Lipsis didn't create the symbols. Apollo didn't create the symbols. And so unless they were initiated into the mystery system, they cannot give you the meanings of these symbols. And you see where it says crystal, magnetic, these are phono pickup. How the fuck you gonna put an A or a B on that and render the meaning? You see what I'm saying? How you gonna put a letter, this is a plug or a socket? So they didn't went and put letters on symbols, which is totally incorrect. I'm gonna go back. No one can put a phonetical alphabetical value to symbols. Okay, you cannot do that. It's telling you to do something. Okay, or it's giving you a rendering a meaning, not a phonetical alphabetical symbol. Okay, phono pickup, crystal, magnetic, plug or socket, antennas, general dipole, loop, ferrite type. Okay, let me come out of this. Here you go. What do these symbols mean? Look at it. You got one here, you got one here, you got one here, you got one here, you got one here. You got 8 symbols. What do they mean? Okay, the first one, slurping. Look at this. That's this one. The second one, solenoid. Okay, these is electrical meanings. This is an electrical diagram. What does this one mean down here? Gauge. That's a gauge right there, like when you got a pressure gauge. Okay, what's this? Component reference. Okay, that's the upside down triangle with an A. Without this diagram, without this legend, there's no way for you to know what these symbols mean. There's no way for you to put a letter on a symbol. So the whole methodology in which Champollion used to decipher the metal letter is fake. It's fake. You cannot put a letter, an alphabetical letter on a symbol. What does this one mean? 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 Okay? This is an alternator. Go back. This is an alternator right here. You wouldn't have never known that unless you had the diagram. What's this? It's a switch. See that? This is a switch. I guess if you had the top part on and you move it, maybe like a washing machine. Cold, warm, hot. It's a switch. But without the diagram, how the hell would you know that? Without the legend, how the hell would you know that? Okay, let's go back to this symbol. What does it mean? It means LED, LED. Okay? You wouldn't have known that. And what's the last one? Single filament bulb. Right there. So you must have the legend to the medulla in order to render the meanings. And the only way you can get that legend is to be initiated into the mystery system and taught that by the priest. It is. Without the key or legend, now there's a lot of symbols on here. I know it might be small for you, but these are all symbols. And this is the whole diagram. This is all symbols. And this is the diagram legend. Diagram legend. Rendering you the meanings of all the symbols. Okay? After 44 years of widespread disagreement among European scholars, okay, how did the discovery of the stone of Canopus in 1866 confirm Champollion's theories and readings of the hieroglyphics? Okay, now what was the stone of Canopus? It was a stone similar to the Rosetta Stone, which supposedly has some of the same names of Greek rulers, and they was able to have two references that supposedly backed up Champellion's alphabet. We have never been able to find this stone nowhere. We've been looking all over the fucking internet. They don't even tell you what museum is housing this stone. So they just making shit up as they go. Champellion's accepted work on the hieroglyphs inspired Adolf Ehrman, a Jew, an Ashkenazi Jew, then curator of ancient Egyptian artifacts at the Berlin Museum. Ehrman was a student of Karl Richard Lepsius, German Egyptologist, who encouraged him to publish a grammatical dictionary of the hieroglyphs in 1880. The dictionary was revised in 1925 and finished in 1934. So that's clear that the whole Medunetta language that y'all niggas know today was already created before any of them niggas picked it up and started adding vowels to make it sound like shit. Like some people say, nature means mother nature. Well, that's a goddamn lie because no vowels is in it. Ain't no mutt, no moot. It's just MT. And you cannot pronounce it. The only thing you can do is spell it out. And that's fraudulent because you cannot apply letters to symbols. So it's fraudulent. Totally. Okay, let me go back. With Karl Richard Lepsius, Ehrman was a student of Karl Richard Lepsius, German Egyptologist, who encouraged him to publish a grammatical dictionary of the hieroglyphs in 1880. The dictionary was revised in 1925 and finished in 1934. Ehrman's work created a new pseudo-direction and language for the ancient Egyptian hieroglyph. I think Walter Williams used pseudo before you niggas. So y'all the real pseudo motherfuckers. He got on y'all ass early. And his work inspired and gave E.A. Wallace Budge a guideline to write his book entitled The Book of the Dead, or The Coming Forth by Day and by Night. I urge you to read this appendix over and over again until you understand the reason why the Medunetta or hieroglyphs have never been deciphered. I will now conclude by quoting from the book, The Rosetta Stone, written for the British Museum by Carol Andrews. Okay, I'm gonna go back to that. The Medunetta was constructed in Germany. Okay, so Adolf Ehrman, Karl Richard Lepsius are Germans. He's an Ashkenazi Jew, and this is a Nazi. And this is another reason why when you go into Egyptology, they believe that Egypt was founded by the great white race. Do y'all understand that? And this nigga talking about, if we didn't have this language, we wouldn't have no history on ancient Egypt. Nigga, you could take all of that goddamn garbage and throw it straight in and burn that shit. Set it on fire. Have a book burn it. We'll be better off without it. And this nigga, he leading you down the path of religion so that you worship all of these crackers because they the ones that gave it to you. Let me step to you. So this is Adolf Ehrman right here. He probably had more to do with the Medunetta than any one man outside of Champollion. This is his teacher, Richard Lepsius, who's a German. So if y'all watch Indiana Jones, when he was in Egypt and he was fighting the Germans, this is when Richard Lepsius went into Egypt on his 4-year expedition, raping and pillaging Egypt by order of the German government. This is his student, Adolf Ehrman, who wrote the largest Medunetta Egyptian hieroglyphic dictionary ever created. This is his student, the student of Adolf Ehrman, Kurt Sepp, who taught Eric Gardner, which these are all linguists. These are all white men, racist white men, Jews and Germans and Nazis who created the Medunetta long before any black scholar even put their hands on it. Do you understand what the fuck? Why they didn't tell y'all that? He taught Adolf Ehrman. Adolf Ehrman taught Kurt Seth. Kurt Seth taught Eric Gardner, Alan Gardner, and Alan Gardner taught Raymond Faulkner. All of these are Medunetta linguists, okay? And they all went, what the university? Berlin University, the Vatican City of the Medunetta, okay? So you know who else went to the Berlin University? Look at that. W.E.B. Du Bois. Look at that. You know who else went to Berlin University? The first chair of Egyptology in America, Henry Breasted, who helped found the Oriental Institute where all of the Nubian artifacts, if you go to Chicago, and you can go and look at all the Nubian artifacts that they stole out of Nubia before they put the Aswan Dam in there, flooded out our sacred lands. He was the one that founded the Oriental Institute. And so you listen to that, Oriental Institute. They were studying Sumeria. They were studying India. Mostly all of these so-called Egyptologists were Orientalists before they was Egyptologists. That's why when they wrote them history books, they always synchronized Egypt with Mesopotamia. That's a goddamn shame that they didn't tell y'all that. Fucking Ashkenazi Jews. That's why when y'all say Amen, ain't no Amen because ain't no A and no E. It's just the M and the N. And there's no Latin on the fucking stone. It's only Greek. They won't show you the Greek because you're gonna look at the fallacy of it. So let me run this down to y'all. Let me run this down to y'all real quick. Whatever language you in, like say for instance, they'll tell y'all that Osiris, Isis, and Horus is Greek, and that Asar, Aset, and Heru is African. That's a lie. It's not African. There's no African in it. Whatever vowel you add, that's the language you speaking. So if you add English vowels to because it's SR, that's all you got, SR. And then you got ST, and then you got HR. So when you add whatever language, you add the vowels so you can speak it, that's the language that you speaking. So Asar, Aset, and Heru is English. It's English. It don't have nothing to do with Africa. Now, how did they put a spell on y'all like that? That's a fucking spell right there. It's no African on it. The fucking letters are Latin. The dialect we speaking is Greek. But just like I showed you how the Germans got one spelling, the Dutch got one spelling. If it was Bulgarian, it would be another spelling. If it was Taiwanese, it would be another spelling. Okay? So whatever vowels you add to SR, it becomes that language. If you add German vowels, it becomes German. If you add French vowel, it becomes French. So Asar, Aset, and Heru is English. I'm sorry to hurt y'all like that. But it's the truth. When you say Amen, that's English. That's English. That's German. You know what English is? It's a West Germanic language. English is German. French comes from Vulgar Latin. What is Vulgar Latin? If Vulgar Latin was the language of the commoners in Rome, the soldiers, the merchants. So how the fuck do you get something sacred from something vulgar? French is Vulgar Latin. Y'all got to look them goddamn languages up. So I'm sorry to tell y'all. And that's why when you hear words like Amen, y'all say, well, Amen is the Egyptian god. And the reason why the Hebrews, the Muslims, they end their prayer in Amen because they got it from Egypt. That's a goddamn lie. The fucking Jew created the metal letter and fucking Hebrew, which is another fake language. And because he was using some of the same constructs and methodology, he made it look like that. Ain't no goddamn A's and no E's and no goddamn metal. There's no vowels in it. So they'll create words to make it appear that there's some connection. They tricked you niggas. I hate to tell y'all that, but it's the truth. They tricked you. I dare any one of them to tell you a goddamn lie. I cannot let them lie to you no more. Okay? They created all of them words to sound alike to trick you. They wanted to give the Bible validity. Okay? So you see right here. You see Indiana Jones and you see the fucking Germans in Egypt. This was the time of Richard Lipsis. When they went in there stealing and pillaging, okay? Let me keep going. Richard Lipsis, Egyptian expedition, 1842, 1846. This is Champollion successor. This is the first so-called great Egyptologist after Champollion because they act like that was such an academic success. After Champollion, they shelved that shit. Wasn't nobody even fucking with that language. He was the first one, probably 10, 15, 20 years after Champollion had been dead, picked it up and began to add on to it to fit his benefit, okay? So he's the St. Peter of Egyptology, okay? He's a Nazi. This is his student, Adolf Herman, a Jew. And when the Germans, the Nazis took over Germany, they kicked his ass out of the Berlin University because he was a Jew. But he created the largest dictionary of metal letter ever constructed. It's a dictionary with about 16,000 words in it. He's the St. Paul of Egyptology, okay? He's a German. That's a Nazi symbol, but that just lets you know he has the Aryan nation mentality that the white race, the blind, blue-eyed white race is the superior race. And these white men wrote in all of the history books that Egypt was founded by the great white race. So how the fuck is these motherfuckers writing a language for your black ass? This is what they not telling you. Them niggas ain't got no black power in their ass at all. These crackers created that goddamn language in totality before niggas even became conscious. So you niggas want to argue with the white man about his shit. You faggot ass niggas. This is Kurt Heinrich Sepp, who was the student of Adolf Herman. He taught Allen Gardner, Sir Allen Henderson Gardner. And a lot of these niggas use him because he's English. And so this is probably outside of Wallace Budge, this is probably the most used of all of the English meta linguists. Sir Allen Henderson Gardner, who was taught by the Jew Kurt Heinrich Sepp, who was taught by the Jew Adolf Herman. They all Ashkenazi Jews. God damn it, the Germans created Egyptology. That's a damn shame they did not tell y'all that. And Allen Gardner taught Raymond Faulkner, and a lot of people use him. He's not great as far as popularity as Gardner, but they still use it. And you see right here, oh, and you know, this great dictionary that Adolf Herman created was funded by the Rockefellers, who also founded the Oriental Institute of Chicago, funded and started by the Rockefellers. Okay, the first American chair in Egyptology. Okay, now this is talking about the dictionary that they put together. Okay, this is Herman Grappa. Him and Adolf Herman put this dictionary together. It's called the Dictionary of the Egyptian Language. This is the Greek, this is the German spelling up here. I know it might be a little blurry, but we're going to tighten it up much later. Abbreviated WB and bibliograph references is a large German language dictionary of the Egyptian language, published between 1926 and 1961 by Adolf Herman and Herman Grappa. This is Adolf Herman, this is Herman Grappa. It is a comprehensive work encompassing 3,000 years of linguistic history, including Old, Middle, and Late Egyptian, as well as hieroglyphic inscriptions of the classical Greco-Roman period. The dictionary contains approximately 16,000 head words in 5 main volumes, 2 secondary volumes, and 5 volumes of primary source references. It is therefore the largest and most complete printed dictionary of ancient Egyptian in existence. Do you hear that? So these is your fathers of the modern Medu-Neter ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic language, the German and the Ashkenazi Jew. Now look at this. I want to show you something. This is Wallace Budge, who I took references out of the Rosetta Stone book from. I want y'all to see this. I want y'all to see this. What this cracker say. I want y'all to see this. I'm gonna show you who he gave credit to. Wait a minute, what the other one at? I'm gonna show y'all who he gave credit to. I'm gonna go over here to this. Here you go. Here you go. I want y'all to see this. He wrote the book, The Rosetta Stone. Listen to what he said. I dedicate this book on the fundamentals. This came out the Osirian drama. Okay, but he wrote Wallace Budge, probably, that's actually the Rothschild. I dedicate this book on the fundamentals of Sudanese and Egyptian religion. Listen to this. By permission, hear me out, by permission to the Honorable Lionel Walter Rothschild, trustee of the British Museum, with sincere gratitude and thanks. That's very critical. Did you understand? This is an Ashkenazi Jew. So they own damn near all of Egyptology. Mostly all of the books that ever been written on ancient Egypt was controlled by the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers. And they made it to where all of the information correlated to their belief system. Whether it was the Bible, whether it was Kabbalah, whether it was Freemasonry, that's what it speaks to. Let me say it again. Okay? Let me say it again. This is from, let me go back over here. Here you go. Matter of fact, it's right behind. I could do it right here. Right behind. There you go. This is Wallace Budge, who wrote the Rosetta Stone. And so he was the curator of the British Museum. Okay? And at that time, Lionel Walter Rothschild, which is the son of Nathan Mayer Rothschild, the big boy, the father, the first Baron Rothschild of England. So they barons, okay? They control the printing press. They control all media. They funded all the royalty of Europe. They funded Cecil Rhodes. They funded the slave trade. They funded the Suez Canal. They funded the Aswan Dam. They funded Leopold, who committed genocide in the Congo. How the fuck is this cracker creating a Medu-Neter language for y'all niggas and he's actually funding the slave trade. That's a goddamn shame that they not tell y'all that. So when he wrote these books, it was by permission to the Honorable Lionel Walter Rothschild, trustee of the British Museum, with sincere gratitude and thanks. They own the shit. They own the Medunata. They own all of the history that been written about ancient Egypt. They own all of the artifacts. So y'all got to quit believing that this is somehow the language of our ancestors, and they're not even using Africans. They're not using no African tongue. They're using Arabic, they're using Hebrew, they're using Aramaic, they're using all of these foreign languages to create the Medunata of the day. Hold on, let me keep it pushing. Let me show y'all something. Let me go back to the original. Let me go back to the original. Now look at this. I'm gonna bring this up too. Let me bring this up too. This is critical. This is critical too. Now, you got Flinders Petrie, Sir William Matthew Flinders Petrie, from England. This is the first chair of Egyptology in the UK. This motherfucker was also, I think he was working with UCLA in California, where he was shipping mummies from ancient Egypt to who? Sir Francis Galton, one of the founders of eugenics, who Margaret Sanger got her philosophy from. And Sir Francis Galton was the cousin to Charles Darwin. So that show you how Egyptology, a lot of it was founded by eugenics. Y'all better go watch Mile for Twin. And so how ironic is now we shooting down the Medunata, we also shooting down evolution, because they were using, man, this man's ship, you go look it up. Sir William Matthew Petrie and Galton. I didn't get his name. He's the third in the Trinity. And Galton commissioned Flinders Petrie to write books on eugenics. This is one of the founding Egyptologists. That's a goddamn shame that them niggas, every fucking cracker they fuck with is a Hitler. This motherfucker's a Hitler who believed that whites were subhuman. And he was shipping so many mummies from ancient Egypt to UCLA, they didn't have enough damn rooms to keep all of the mummies. And this is where they was doing a lot of their scientific calculations on the skulls, on the size of the brains, creating the eugenics movement. That's a shame. This is the Oriental Institute, where they got the Nubian artifact. You see where it said Oriental? So they're coming from the perspective that Sumeria and Asia is the founding of all civilization, the founding of all history. It says that Egypt was a daughter of Mesopotamia. Adolf Ehrman, the Ashkenazi Jew, has created the largest ancient Egyptian dictionary to date. It has the greatest impact on the Egyptian hieroglyphs outside of Champollion himself. And the greatest of the ancient Egyptian linguists were either his student or a student of his students. Do you understand that? So this man has had more impact on the Medunata today, probably more than any one man except Champollion himself. So you see right here, now I'm gonna read this from Dr. John Henry Clark, so y'all can get y'all mind right. Everything that has been created by the European mind was to help facilitate European control over the world, and there are no exceptions. Go watch the one, We Have No Friends, so you can see the expression when he tell you that. I'm going to read it again. Everything that has been created by the European mind was to help facilitate European control over the world, and there are no exceptions, including the metal net by General Seti. I had to add that on there. You cannot take anything from the European mind and think you're going to liberate yourself with it. You goddamn fool. He encoded everything in it so he could control it, and that it'll further his ambitions in controlling the world. Because the metal netter was created to prop up the Bible. The same Jew that created the fake Hebrew, which is Yiddish, created the fake metal netter alphabet and dictionary. And that's why you have so many similarities, such as Amen in ancient Egyptian and in the Bible. Wow. That hurt. That hurt. That hurt. Let's look at Champollion's teachings, just so that you know. This error right there, what's his name? Raphael D. Manassas, okay, right there, only Arab on Napoleon's campaign into Egypt. Taught Champollion Arabic and Coptic, and he lived from 1759 to 1831. Champollion's language teacher. So for anybody that's talking about Coptic is an African language, I want you to know that it was a white Arab that taught Champollion his Coptic, taught him his Arabic, okay? And Champollion, before he became an Egyptologist, was also an Orientalist. He studied Hebrew, he studied Arabic, and he studied Chinese. But check this out. Wait a minute, let me keep going. This is the one of his teachers that introduced him to the Rosetta Stone, also a Jew. Sylvester D. Seti, a baron, a Jew, who was the first Frenchman to study the Rosetta Stone. Can't y'all see that the Ashkenazi Jews control Egyptology? Created the metal letter, created the history, and they were Orientalists, which means they studied the Near East. And look how they got Egypt grouped in. See, that's why they could use all of them languages, not only Coptic. They also use Arabic. They also use Slavic. They also use Yiddish, which is German, which they say is Hebrew. And then the crazy thing about it, they say anything below Sudan has nothing, is not considered a part of the Afro-Asiatic language. Anything south of the Sahara is not considered a part of the Afro-Asiatic language except Ethiopia and Eritrea. But I got maps that show you the other part where it's in yellow, and on the diagram and on the legend, it says anything in yellow is not considered a part of the Afro-Asiatic language. So they can use languages from Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Yemen. Oman is a sister language to Coptic. Do y'all understand that? Coptic is not ancient Egyptian. Coptic is a language, sister language to Arabic, a sister language to the fake Aramaic of the Syrian, and that's who his teacher was right there. He was of Syrian birth. I got to tell y'all that. The scribe that put it on the wall is the only authority. The scribe that put it on the wall or papyrus is the only one who can give you the key. So you got right here, you got cursive hieroglyphics, okay? And you got Hieratic. These are two different scripts, but they only spoken by the priests. These are not commoner languages. And you cannot put Coptic on it. You cannot put Demotic on it, because those are common languages that were brought where the Demotic is African, but yet it's still a trade language. It was not the language of the priests. And you cannot take Demotic to interpret erratic or cursive hieroglyphics or the regular hieroglyphics. Okay, here we go. So this is where they got a SAR. It's just SR. And then you add the A in the beginning, and you add an A between the S and the R. That gives you a SAR. But when you speak a SAR and you pronounce a SAR, it's English. ST. These are Latin letters. There's no Latin on the Rosetta Stone. See how slick they is? See how slick they is? They never show you the Greek. They automatically transliterate it into Latin. There's no Latin on the Rosetta Stone, even though it's a fake. It's a fake because you don't have the top. And I asked the question. The bottom weighs 1,600 pounds. The top would have had to weigh damn near as much. Where's the top? It couldn't have just blew up the damn street. It had to be in the vicinity. But they knew that the top would render the true meaning of the Rosetta Stone. So they left it where it was. The bottom of the Rosetta Stone is fraudulent. It's fraudulent. Okay? So this is how you get our set. You add the A, you add the E, but you only got ST. That's all you got. And you can switch the E and put it where the A is. Wait a minute, let me show you. Let me show you. Let me show you how you can do this. Let me show you how you can do this. Okay, let me do it like this. I can leave it like that. You ain't got to say I set. You can spell it just like this, E-set. Both of them wrong. As a matter of fact, you can take the E's out. Let me show you something. Nobody can tell you you're wrong. You can spell it like this. C-I-S-I-T. You ain't supposed to have vowels in it. Nobody can tell you you're wrong because you're adding the vowels at your own discretion. So people create words and make them sound like something to fool you that, just like you say, mutt netcher. Ain't no mutt netcher. It's only MT. Let me tell you. Let me show you. I had to break heads today. MT. Let me blow that up. Let me blow that up. Let me blow this up so I can show you. The Egyptologists add the vowels at their own discretion. So no mud natural, you can't even pronounce that. You can put an I in there. You can put a U in there. You can put an O in there. If you go into German, you can add German vowels and have all so many thousands of words when you add. It's depending on the vowel or the dialect in which you add. If you add German, if you add German vowels to this, okay, then when you pronounce it, it's German. So based on the vowels in which you add to these letters, which are Latin. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is Latin. And 70% of the world is using Latin. So based on the dialect in which you speak, you're going to add your vowels in here. And whatever dialect, whatever vowels you add from whatever dialect you use, that's the language you're speaking. So for instance, if you added the U, and you added the E in there, and you said mutnatter, that's English. There's no African in it because the letters are Latin. The dialect is English. There's neither Latin nor English is on the Rosetta Stone. But you can't add letters to symbols, I'm just breaking it down to you. Any goddamn way. So the fact, even if you take the vowels out, even though they said you can't add vowels. Let me take it out. This is still false because you cannot add letters to symbols. So I'm just showing you how it becomes more fraudulent as you go on. You become more fraudulent and more fraudulent and more fraudulent. This is Latin. There's no Latin on the Rosetta Stone. So why are you using Latin? And then you add the vowels from whatever dialect, which again takes you more and more into falsehood. You cannot add letters to symbols and render the meanings. Let me break it down to you, baby. I hope you understand me, because it's going to take you a minute. Now, this is another one. How is it that you can honor Napoleon and Champollion and at the same time honor Dessalines, Book Mine, Toussaint Overture, from the great Haiti, the first African empire in the West, that show you how sick you niggas is? How the fuck is you gonna call on Napoleon and Champollion and call on Dessalines, Book Mine, Toussaint? How can you do that? You're fraudulent, nigga. The spirituality, that revolutionary spirituality of our Haitian brothers and sisters is the spirit of the Meduna. We're fighting against the goddamn cracker. You use the cracker. These are the authors of the Meduna. Look at this. Never called on the names of our Haitian revolutionaries and called on the name of Napoleon and Champollion at the same time. That show you how wicked y'all niggas is. They don't have no black power in them. This is false flagging, nigga. You false flagging when you do that. So you got to pick one side or the other. Look at this. This is our Haitian brother. See that right there? That's Champollion. That right there is Dessalines going up in his gut, going up in his throat with that blade, that sickle. See over there bludgeoning these goddamn Frenchmen. And you take a Frenchman, a French faggot who never been to Africa, never even heard Africans speak, never used one African in the foundation of his language. And this is y'all Christ figure today. This is the Christ of Egyptology. So goes the language, so goes Egyptology. And that's why we must remove it from the minds of our people today. Because most of the history that have been written from this fraudulent language is racist history against our people. Every goddamn movie you see where there are white people in Egypt, he's the father of that theory. Anything crackers love can't be right for African people. Look at this. Look at this line, no good ass stone, and these crackers. This is your 10 Commandments. This is your Moses. This is your Christ figure. This is your 10 Commandments. You didn't go in and break this down. You believed it. You didn't do no research to prove whether this shit was true. You just believed it. Egyptology is a religion. It's a religion, family. This is your 10 Commandments, and this is your Moses. This is your Christ figure. If a white man's hand touched it, it can no longer be considered sacred. So y'all got to quit saying the Medunata, the language of the gods. How sacrilegious is that when the white man created it? The white man interpreted the language of the African gods, the sacred language. Do you hear that? They're not telling you this because they don't have no spirituality. This is sacrilegious to our ancestors. This is treason on the ancestors. The people that pillaging and plundering the tombs have pillaged and plundered our African glyphs. They have kidnapped the tongue of our African ancestors. And so, what is my objective today? My objective today is to free the tongue of the ancestors, okay? To free the tongue of the ancestors. You have to go back home. You have to become one with the land. You have to become one with the family in the land. You have to get back your African spirit, and you must be initiated. They're going to come and tell you that you can go. I heard Professor Small say something about some tribe in Togo, say that they are the descendants of the ancient Egyptians, and that they speak in the Medu Neter. And they damn near 3,000 miles away from ancient Egypt. You got to be serious. It got to be, you cannot superimpose any other language, whether it's African, European, even though you got similarities in all African languages. You cannot superimpose another African language on top of ancient Egypt, because all ancient Egyptians were not initiated in the craft. So just using our African language is not the key. You must be initiated. So that's why they're trying to fool you. Oh, we're using this African language. Was that African initiated? That don't exclude the fact that you still had to be initiated. And so you can't just go up there spooking, putting your own interpretation on it. Yeah, you can make a common understanding, a common interpretation, but that don't mean that's what the priest who drew the glyph, that's what he meant for it to be. You got to have a legend. You have to have a diagram. You have to have the teacher's manual from the priest who put it on the stone, who put it on the papyrus. Other than that, you guessing. And I don't care if you're African or European, if you was not initiated, you don't know what it means. Okay? So just superimposing African, where we at? Just superimposing an African script in place of the European script will still not render you the meanings of the symbols. Only the priests can, the primary priest who put it on the stone, put it on the papyrus, can give you the diagram. Look at this. Okay, it took a priest 40 years to go through the mystery system and get his training. But for 1995, the Medu Neter niggas can tighten your ass up in a couple of days. See, what y'all got to understand is that the Medu Neter is what gave our ancestors the ability to build the Great Pyramid. Okay? Let me go up. Wait a minute, is this the one? Wait a minute, hold up. I went past her. Here you go. The Medu Neter gave our ancestors the ability to build the pyramid. If you translate it, duplicate it. See, that's the final proof. That's the final proof. The Medu Neter gave our ancestors the ability to build the pyramid. If you translate it, duplicate it, family, okay? That's the final proof. It's going to be a lot of people that come to claim our ancestors' great works, mind-boggling works, stealing it. They're trying to steal it, but they can never duplicate it. That's how you know that they have never translated, okay? They're just mouthing. They're just mouthing off words that the white man, and many other words, as I showed you, you can create yourself. You can create them yourself. Let me give you two more, and then I'm going to give it to Pharaoh. Let me give y'all two more. The fact, wait a minute, let me give y'all two more. So I want y'all to get on the nigga podiums. This is This is Fudishi. These is all the niggas that's speaking it on the wall. Some people say that they can speak very little of the metal now. But if you turn on their goddamn video, that's all they speaking. Ra. Ra. Sintepin Ra. Ramesu Maria. Every goddamn video. But you speak very little of it though, huh? See, that's the nigga 5 Chef Peleon methodology. We owe you niggas today. See, that's why you left that trap door, nigga. I speak very little of it. But you've been going to Egypt for 38 years. What you was doing over there, brother? Was you scooting in the sand? Huh? You mean to tell me you was there for 38 years and you did not know that these crackers created the metal nether in whole before we ever became conscious? They had created the whole language. And niggas have sprinkled sugar on shit and served it to the people. It might go down sweeter. It might sound sweeter. But shit with sugar sprinkled on it is still shit. So nigga create words that make it sound sweet, this, that, and the third. There is no vowels in the Medunata. I'm saying it only because to get an understanding. I'm not justifying the Medunata because I use the term Medunata. I'm using it so you understand what I'm saying. The fact that you are pronouncing it. Wait a minute. You know what? There's some more things I want to break down. More verification. So what you see up here, this is the Greek on the stone. See, this is Latin. See how quickly they throw it in Latin? See, these are Latin letters, but there's no Latin on the stone. See, if they use Latin, it would become more of a fallacy. See, there's no vowels in that shit. And nobody could go up there and speak it. And you see right there, that's Alexander's name right there. There's Alexander's name right there. And that's where they get the A from. They don't get the A from the like Fudishi. Silly ass. Talking about the A come from the sound that the vulture make. Nigga, it come from the A in Alexander's name. All of the alphabet that Peleon created, they took all of the Greek rulers' names and they superimposed them on the glyphs in the cartouche. That's what gave them the alphabet. So the whole alphabet comes from them homosexual, lesbian, pedophile Greeks, including Caesar. Okay? I need 3 more. Thank you, brother. Not a problem. I'll go up here because I got to do some things.
Seti going crazy.
So this is Greek. See this? Now look, ain't no P in Greek. See that? See how they fucked this up right there? See, this is Latin. See this Latin? They say this is Ptolemy, but this is actually Ptolemy's name in Greek. Ain't no. That's why it's Ptolemy. The P is silent because ain't no P. See? So you got T. So when you got the L here, you got this letter. It's not an A. I guess it's an alpha. You got E. So look at that. From the Greek, you got this letter in the E. Now you come down to Latin, you just got L. So you got to cut from the Greek to the Latin. Okay? Now look at it. You got the L, but you got A, I, O, and you got this funny looking letter. And then you come down here, you got 2 E's and an S. How did y'all get this? This is Latin. Ain't no fucking Latin on the stone. they never show you the Greek because it looks so goddamn impossible. So how the fuck you get them letters right there on them symbols? You cannot put alphabetical, phonetical letters on symbols. So from right there, from the Greek to the Latin, you got a serious cut. So when you look at Cleopatra and Ptolemy, which ain't no P's in Greek, so I don't know how you got them corresponding P's, and you don't have no L in Greek. But they telling you these is the letters that they got, you know, that match Ptolemy and Cleopatra. The P, the O, and the L. But there's no P in Greek. There's no L in Greek. Look at that shit. And so they'll come in like mess right there, they got from Coptic. They got that from Coptic. So they're gonna say, well, was it a transliteration? Was it a translation? See, translation is when you render the meanings, okay? A transliteration, you're just trying to get the pronunciation. You're not trying to get the meaning. So the Greek was deficient. So right here you got the Greek, but then the mess comes from Coptic. So you got two languages in one word. How the fuck you using two languages to make one word? Two languages. You got Greek and Coptic to make one word. That's a hybrid, synthetic fucking language. Okay, this is your Ptolemy. This is the first word ever transliterated. This is your savior. This is your God. Somebody should have told y'all niggas that. I'm gonna show y'all. Y'all motherfuckers gonna learn tonight. Y'all gonna learn tonight. Let's deal with Ramesses. And I'm gonna show y'all something. And I want y'all to go do this, because I'm gonna back it up that the Medunetter was created to prop up the Bible. Okay? Now, number one, Ra. That's Coptic. That's Coptic for the sun. Now that's a translation. Why? Because you gave the meaning. Okay? You put a word on that. Ra is a word. First, you was transliterated. You was just putting letters on the symbols. Now you render meaning. So this is a translation. Ra is a translation. It's sun for Coptic. This symbol is also a translation. Messi, meaning to give birth. And then you got two letters, S and S, that come from the Greek. Okay? So this is a transliteration. You didn't render a meaning. You just rendered the corresponding initials, the corresponding letters, which was SS. So you had two S's right there. So here you got words. You got one word, and two letters. This is Greek. This is Coptic. So you got two languages, Coptic and Greek. You got two methodologies. You got translations and you got transliteration. So you got two methodologies, two languages to make one fucking word, Ramesses. This is a hybrid, synthetic, European creation. Now dig this. Dig this, y'all. Ask me this. We see that this is Champerion's methodology. And he created this methodology in 1828. He used Coptic to get Ra. He used Coptic to get Messi. And then he used Mesu. Then he used Greek to get the two S's at the end. Now, Champollion created this methodology in 1828. How the hell do you get Ramesses in a 1611 Bible? 200 years before he created the methodology. That is proof that they backdated all them goddamn books and added this methodology in it to get a Bible validity. Do you hear what I'm telling you? He created, this is Champollion's methodology. Because the Hebrews were supposedly in Egypt damn near 2,000-3,000 years before Coptic ever came on the scene, or the Greek. They wouldn't have never needed Coptic or Greek. What was the word that they was using for this king before the Coptic and before the Greek? You have to ask yourself that. So that is proof positive that they've been backdating these books to make it seem like that they are ancient people, to validate the Bible, to validate the white origins of civilization. This is what they've been doing. Let me keep going. We also want to look at Champollion the Plunderer. See how he's stepping on supposedly Ramesses to say we're using it now. So if you go to the Ramesseum, you'll see this head of Ramesses been knocked down, and look at the cracker. Putting this is Champollion. Putting his foot on the head as in conquest. He's conquered us. You see this in Paris? He's responsible for bringing this obelisk to Paris. You know where he got it from? They tore it down from in front of the Great Lodge of Luxor. You've been to Luxor. That's where this obelisk belongs. And Champollion, the plunderer, the conqueror of ancient Egypt, is responsible for removing that obelisk from ancient Egypt. Your good cracker father, who taught you the metanatter. I want to talk to y'all today, man. Because some of you niggas is, a cracker is a cracker is a cracker. How you gonna say Columbus did not discover America and say Champollion deciphered the metanatter? You fooling yourself. You can't take one cracker down and put another cracker up. You take Jesus down, you put Champollion up. You talk shit about Eminem, and then you come over and say Champollion deciphered the metanatter. You say Pythagoras ain't got no theorem. That formula was created in ancient Egypt. But you say Champollion deciphered the metanatter. You can't take one cracker down and put another cracker up. A cracker is a no good motherfucking cracker. You niggas who follow Champollion and Napoleon should never call on the names of Dessalines, Bookmont, Toussaint. You should never call on Haiti. You should never call on the revolutionaries of Haiti. You should never call on none of our revolutionaries because you are a liar. You do not believe in black power. You can't take one cracker down and put another cracker up. You got to treat this cracker like you treat all other crackers. You silly niggas. Let me get you two more. I'm always saying give you two more.
Let him get you 20 motherfucking more.
Daggers.
Motherfuckers.
Damn. So when we're talking about research today. We're talking about a primary source versus a secondary source. A primary source is a document or physical object which was written or created during the time under study. These sources were present during an experience or time period and offer an inside view of a particular event. I'm going to read it again. A primary source is a document or physical object which was written or created during the time under study. So if you're talking about ancient Egypt, the Rosetta Stone could be a primary source, but it's not. It's fraudulent. The pyramid is a primary source of ancient Egypt. A papyrus is a primary because it was created under the time of study. These sources was present during an experience or time period and offer an inside view of a particular event. What is a secondary source? A secondary source interprets and analyzes primary sources. So we must understand these sources are one or more steps removed from the event. So Champollion fake transliteration is not a primary reference. Even though it's false, it's only a secondary source. He is making an analysis based off of the Rosetta Stone, which just happens to be a fraudulent source, because the Africans never used Greek. They disdained the Greek because he was a homosexual, because he was a pedophile, and because they were lesbians. So you cannot use the Meta alphabet as a primary source. It's not a primary source. It's a secondary source. And it's a fraudulent secondary source. And the reason why it's a secondary source, because it was created in 1828. It was not created during the time of the study. It's not a I asked the question, could our ancestors read and understand the metroneta of today? And the answer is no, because all of the languages that went into the metroneta of today was created after the fall of ancient Egypt. It's just like asking, did Jesus wear Jordans? And we're using a hypothetical Jesus. Did Jesus wear Jordans? The answer is no, because we know that Jordans did not exist at the time of Jesus. And so I'm going to ask you again, could the ancients, our ancestors, read the metroneta of today and understand it? And the answer is no, because none of the languages that went into the making of the metroneta existed at the time of ancient Egypt. So I'm going to go to my last two for today, because this could go on for hours and hours. And as we taking this on tour this year, and so we'll be breaking it down in much more clarity and adding much more lessons to the false teaching as the year goes forward. I can give y'all this one too, so that y'all know where to go. See, so this is in Nubia. So you see that many Nubian dialects were also applied to the Nile Valley hieroglyphs. They should not be called the Egyptian hieroglyphs. They're the Nile Valley hieroglyphs. And so you can see that Nubian dialects were also applied to the hieroglyphs. Not no languages from Togo, not no languages from Senegal, or none of that. Even though there's some similarities in all of African languages, the only two that we could verify without any doubt that were attached to these glyphs were the dialects in Egypt and in Nubia and in Punt, all the way down to Uganda on the Nile. You should not have went to Coptic. You should have went to the Nubian languages that are in Upper Kemet, Lower and Upper Sudan. This is the closest as you're going to get to the ancient Egyptian. They did not go to Nubian because they were trying to prove a white origin to ancient Egypt. And that's why they used Coptic, because they knew that Coptic was a bastard language. Greek, Slavic, Arabic, a lot of white languages that were gathered together to make Coptic. They couldn't claim the Nubians because the Nubians was African. That wasn't going, they were looking for the white origins of Egypt. They was looking to push a white history of Egypt. And they knew they could not do it with Nubia because they knew that this was an African language. Even though this is the mother tongue of ancient Egypt. Nubian is the mother tongue of ancient Egypt. If you go in all these Nubian pyramids, you'll see the writing, what you call the metroneta. So you got to go back up the river. You can't use Coptic, which is in Lower Kemet, where all of the conquests, all of the foreigners live. Lower Kemet been compromised since shit, probably 1000 BC. So it been constantly conquered. A lot of vagabond races have gathered in Lower Kemet, and Coptic represent that. Hold up. So this is what we're gonna do today. We got to slap this goddamn Nick Krakatosis out your way. See, this is for all you niggas that think nothing. Champollion is your father. This is for all you niggas that got that Napoleon bloodline in you, teaching it to the babies, the homosexual language of the metal netter. This is General Seti, and we got young Pharaoh coming behind me, gonna back it up. He gonna give you some extra valuable information. You put it all together and you start your research. You go back home to ancient Africa. You start building with the family at home. And when they see you are serious, do you hear me? See, that's all. After I slapped that nigga. And he realized that he was really a nigga. See, he thought he was Champollion. He thought he was Napoleon. Until the general came up in there and slapped his shit out of him. See, these are the metal netter speakers of the day. They're going down today because they can't take nothing away from what I brought y'all today. Okay? It's the facts. I'm going to end with this. I'm going to end with this. I'm going to end with this, family. I'm going to end with this. I'm going to end with this. The metal netter gave our ancestors the ability to build the pyramid. If you translate it, then duplicate it. That is the ultimate proof of any translation, decipherment, transliteration, and we understand it that you cannot add alphabetical letters to symbols that you don't have a key, a primary key or diagram to render the meanings. Symbols are not letters. You cannot put a letter on a symbol and render the meanings. The fraudulent metal netter cannot be spoken. It has no vowels. And when you add the vowels to it, if you English and you add English vowels, you are speaking English. You're not speaking African. I showed you that the mother tongue of the metal netter is Greek and Coptic. It has been transliterated into Latin. I'm showing you all these cuts. I'm showing you all these cuts. It's been transliterated into Latin, and each dialect has added its own vowels. And with whatever dialect or of the vowels that you add, that's what you speaking. So again, when people say you speaking, you say Osiris and Isis and Horus is Greek, and Asa and Aset and Heru is African. That is wrong. Asa, Aset, and Heru is English. You added English vowels. And so you are speaking English. And so that is a fraudulent methodology because there are so many dialects on the planet that you can have thousands and thousands of words for one word. The only true word is the word, the glyphs of our ancestors. And we don't know the language. So the glyphs are still holy. The glyphs are still holy. We have to go back home and become one with our culture, one with our language. You don't decipher your ancestors' tongue. Listen to that. Listen to that. I'm going to go decipher my ancestors' tongue. No, you can become one with your people. You go back and become one with your mother tongue. So I'm going to end with this, family. The metal netter gave our ancestors the ability to build the pyramids. If you translate it, duplicated. I hope that I brought some clarity. We'll be going over it further and further during the year. I hope I brought you some clarity, family, and I hope today that you can start your transition to going back to our spiritual tongue, our ancestors' tongue, and not just speaking something that you create, but becoming one with the land and becoming one with our brothers and sisters at home in the Nile, and that they will be the guides that will initiate you. You don't go over there and ask. You just go, you do your work. Until then, you have a common understanding. Your spirit will give you a common understanding. But that does not make it the understanding of the priesthood. You must be initiated into the craft to get the key, to get the diagram to those symbols. Thank you very much.